We've inherited a company where last year's playbook no longer works. The strategies that once drove growth now deliver diminishing returns, or perhaps nothing at all. And the instinct when that happens is to plan harder, think more carefully, analyse longer, commit more fully. It feels responsible. But research consistently shows that that is exactly the wrong response. By the time you learn whether a new strategy works through the traditional approaches, you've burnt through months of runway and whatever goodwill your board had when they brought you in. Companies that successfully restart growth after stalling do something different. They build what researchers call an experimentation mindset, a systematic approach to running smaller, faster tests, accelerate learning, and dramatically reduce the cost of being wrong. 3 researchers have spent decades studying how organisations build this capability. Rita McGrath at Columbia, Stephan Thomke at Harvard Business School, and Amy Edmondson, also at Harvard. And their work is complementary. Together it forms the most practically useful framework a growth mandate CEO can draw on. None of the 3 frameworks works fully without the other 2. McGrath provides the strategic discipline, Thomke provides the operational system, and Edmondson provides the cultural foundation that allows the system to run. The shift is about converting from big betting on untested plans to testing cheaply before committing. Rita McGrath, stop defending assumptions and start testing them. So McGrath's research reveals that an uncomfortable truth is most failed strategies don't fail because of poor execution, they fail because of core assumptions that proved wrong. And the organisation only discovered this after committing major resource. Traditional business cases document assumptions, but they treat them as if they are given rather than hypothesis. McGrath's discovery-driven planning inverts this entirely. Every strategic initiative is treated as a set of assumptions that must be validated through systematic testing before you commit. The methodology is straightforward in principle. You document every assumption underlying a strategy. Could be customer behaviour, competitive response, operational capability, timing, resource requirements. And then you sequence those assumptions by 2 dimensions. Criticality, if this is wrong, does the strategy fail? And uncertainty, how confident are we that this is true? That sequencing creates a learning roadmap. You test the high criticality, high uncertainty assumptions first before you hire the expensive VP, before you build the platform, before you commit the budget. Consider a real scenario. Your company historically grew through outbound sales, but that motion is now delivering declining returns. The traditional response is to hire better sales leadership or invest in enablement. But both of these responses assume that the problem is execution, not strategy. Discovery-driven planning asks different questions first. Are the underlying assumptions still true? Do buyers still respond to outbound contact? Does your positioning still resonate? Is the sales cycle still economically viable? Each of those becomes testable. You shift some rep time to pure inbound response. You try radically shorter cycles with smaller deals. You experiment with product-led approaches. These tests surface which assumptions hold and which don't before you've invested real time and money. Stephan Thomke built a system for learning at speed. So whilst McGrath gives you the strategic discipline, Thomke provides the operational framework. His research identifies the elements that separate organisations that learn fast from those that don't. The most important shift is how you formulate hypotheses, not improve customer satisfaction or increase revenue. Those are not testable. A proper hypothesis reads, we believe that this specific action will lead to this specific outcome for this specific customer segment because this causal mechanism. With that final clause, the because, is where the assumption hides. It forces teams to articulate what they actually believe about how the business works, and it makes those beliefs available for testing. Thomke's research also demonstrates something counterintuitive about learning velocity. Running 10 small experiments over 10 weeks generates dramatically more learning than one large initiative over the same period. Even if several of those experiments fail, each experiment informs the next hypothesis. The maths compounds. For a growth mandate CEO, this matters because board patience is measured in quarters, not years. Demonstrating learning progress each month, not just an outcome progress, builds the confidence that you're making informed decisions, even when the numbers haven't moved. Thomke is equally rigorous about experimental design. Most organisations conflate correlation with causation. They implement a change, see outcomes shift, and assume their change caused it. Proper experiments require control groups, randomization, statistical power, and variable isolation. For companies at your scale, that doesn't require sophisticated infrastructure. Even a controlled rollout implementing a change with half your customers whilst maintaining the status quo with the other half provides vastly better learning than a company-wide change with no baseline. One element Thomke emphasises is that often gets overlooked: clear decision protocols established before results arrive. Who decides whether to scale, pivot, or kill based on what evidence? What threshold triggers what action? When results arrive without pre-agreed criteria, political dynamics fill the vacuum and organisations end up defending decisions rather than acting on data. Amy Edmondson, the foundation everything else depends on. So McGrath and Thomke's frameworks will only work if people are actually willing to surface uncertainty, propose risky ideas, admit when test fails, and challenge prevailing assumption. Edmondson's 25 years of research demonstrates that this willingness depends entirely on psychological safety, the belief that you can speak up without fear of humiliation or punishment. Teams in low-safety environments default to executing safe, proven approaches, exactly what doesn't work when you're trying to restart growth. But Edmondson is clear: psychological safety is not softness. Her framework of the learning zone combines high psychological safety with high accountability. Low safety with high accountability creates anxiety, and then people hide problems. High safety with low accountability creates drift. People won't push themselves. The learning zone requires both, and it's the most demanding leadership environment to create and sustain. Her most useful practical contribution for growth mandate CEOs is the distinction between three types of failure. Preventable failure, process deviation, known errors, should be minimised and investigated. Unavoidable failures, bad outcomes despite proper execution, requires resilience and recovery. And then there are intelligent failures, outcomes from well-designed tests in genuinely uncertain domains. Edmondson argues these are the only failures organisations should celebrate, because they generate unique learning available no other way. The problem is that most organisations treat all failures identically, which means teams learn quickly that any action might not succeed is dangerous. Experimentation dies before it starts. 3 specific leader behaviours build the safety required for experimentation to flourish. First, frame the work accurately. Explicitly name the uncertainty involved. We're testing new approaches to restarting growth. Some will work and some won't. Success means learning quickly which is which. Second, actively invite participation. Ask what assumptions might be wrong, what concerns exist before committing resource, what could be tested quickly. Third, respond productively when people surface problems or share results that didn't land as expected. Edmondson's research shows that a single dismissive response can suppress speaking up for months. These 3 frameworks belong together. McGrath provides strategic discipline, Thomke provides the operational system, and Edmondson provides the cultural foundation, and none of the 3 fully works without the other 2. And it's worth naming what isn't. Organisations that build this capability don't lower standards, they raise them. The question worth sitting with: what major resource commitments are you about to make based on untested assumptions? What would it take to test those assumptions? With 10% of the resource and 25% of the time. This is just a taste of what's inside the Growth Catalyst community, a place built for CEOs and founders to learn, develop, and fulfill their growth mandate and promise. If you're a CEO or founder currently planning, making change, and making big strategic and operational decisions right now, this is the community for you. Get 90 days free all access at zocri.com.